Hello, everybody. It is January 31st, Saturday. I am currently sitting outside of uh, In-N-Out Burger. Today, I'm going to be going to a Seventh-day Adventist church with some friends. So, like 2 days ago, we kind of had the idea that it could be fun to go church hopping this year. So, we're going to try and see if we could visit 12 different churches this year. So, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do today. I haven't really planned it out. I don't know if the church allows filming inside or pictures, so once we get there, I'm going to be asking them. Hopefully, I'll be able to get a little bit of footage, and then I'll be able to voice over kind of some of my thoughts and experiences. But I'm looking forward to it. So I did end up taking a few pictures and videos in the church. I just got back from it. It was really fun. I'll end up throwing some of those pictures and videos on the screen as appropriate, but just a little bit of background for kind of why I ended up visiting the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So some of my friends and I, we were kind of talking the other day how it could be fun to do something like visit 12 different churches this year, one every month. We're talking later today. We might expand that to do a few more, but at least 12. And so we were kind of talking about this on Friday, I believe. And of course, if we wanted to do something for January, we had to do it pretty quick. And the last day of January today is a Saturday. So we kind of figured out, well, if it's Saturday, like who meets on Saturday? Seventh Day Adventist. So we decided to go to their Sundays, or sorry, not Sunday, their Sabbath service, and it was really fun. So kind of a few things that were interesting that I wanted to point out. So before I even went, we ended up going to the West Jordan Seventh Day Adventist Church. One of the things that was really interesting going on their website is it looks like a pretty standard Christian website. I've looked at websites for a few different churches, and it looked kind of standard. Like it has a basic list of beliefs, meeting times, affirming some basic things. We believe that the Bible is the Word of God, talking about how the church is a way to connect with Christ, with God, stuff like that. So one thing that was interesting, and I want to study this more, is they said on the site, as Seventh day Adventists, we accept the Bible as our only source of beliefs. And they also said, we consider our movement to be the result of Protestant conviction of sola scriptura, so that the Bible is the only standard of faith and practice for Christians. So that was interesting just because I do know that um, Seventh day Adventists have, I don't know the exact details, but something going on with Ellen G. White as a prophet. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I found that interesting. But other than that, it looked pretty standard comparing to a lot of other Christian churches and their websites. Um, so I ended up going with my two friends. One of them, he's non-denominational. His church, I think, is actually part of the Southern Baptist Convention. But that was my first friend. The other one is a Presbyterian. So kind of fun to go with a small group that has some different views on a few different things. But it was overall really good. I really enjoyed it. But my first thoughts pulling up into the church, um, it looked like a pretty normal church. I mean, nothing crazy. We walked in, there are like one or two paintings of Jesus in the main foyer. And the first thing that happens when we walk in is there's two greeters. One of them says welcome, shakes our hand, says happy Sabbath. Another one walks over, gives us a little pamphlet, happy Sabbath. That was a pretty big thing. Um, but yeah, it was just like a fun little church. I'll throw a few pictures up. They have this one little poster with 28 fundamental teachings. We got there probably 15 minutes before the service began, so we were kind of reading through those different teachings, kind of just exploring. They had like a fun little sign-in book, so we basically signed in there, asking, "What's your name? Where are you from? What church? What's your home church?" But it was a really fun experience. So we started out with Sabbath school, which was just like a smaller group. As we walked in, it was a pretty diverse group. I was actually really surprised. There were a lot of different people, like racially diverse. People were wearing all sorts of different clothes. We had people wearing like super nice suits. We had some people just wearing jeans and t-shirts. So that was fun.
But we had Sunday school in what they call the sanctuary, and that's kind of their main meeting space for worship. It's really pretty looking space. It was cool. And one of the things I noticed partway through the service, it took me a minute, but they have this really beautiful stained glass picture that has Christ surrounded by a few angels, and you see the Ten Commandments. And one of the themes that I really saw throughout the day was the emphasis on the Sabbath. And they repeated that a lot, right? Like the greeting was Happy Sabbath. They had these big LED screens when you walked into the sanctuary with Happy Sabbath on them. Um, just people as they spoke throughout the day in their remarks, Happy Sabbath, Happy Sabbath. So it was really interesting to see their focus on that. But on this stained glass window, it kind of clicked halfway through. Is there's this beam of light, and you see it highlighting kind of this bottom commandment, commandment number 4, which is keep the Sabbath day holy. So I kind of thought that was funny, but like I really like the subtle symbolism there. It was kind of fun, just seeing their focus on that. But it was cool. So as part of their lesson, they actually have like this weekly kind of program that you follow. So they meet a little bit throughout the week, but you can kind of study these things, and then when you go to Sabbath school, you know kind of exactly what you're talking about, which is cool that it has a curriculum. I'm assuming that this is kind of universal among Seventh Day Adventists, so I'm assuming that the same kind of little lesson plan that I did today as part of Sabbath Day School was also the same lesson plan that others throughout the world are following, which is kind of cool. I like that. Um, but yeah, it was really interesting. An elder there ended up giving the lesson. Talked about a lot of different interesting things. But one of the things that I noticed pretty early on was people were definitely very vocal. There there were a lot of amens just in the background throughout the day. There was also a lot of prayer, which I really enjoyed. So starting out with a prayer, praying like partway through the lesson, closing the lesson off with a prayer. That was really cool just to see their a really big focus on prayer. I enjoyed that. But this elder, he gave a lesson. He talked a little bit about creation, Jesus as the one who is creating. He shared a Martin Luther quote, which was really good that I need to find. It was something along the lines of the Son of God didn't want to be seen or found in heaven, so he descended to us into a manger and then onto a cross. But he was just kind of putting in perspective the creation. He talked about the James Webb Telescope a bit. He kind of nerded out a little bit about that. I'm curious kind of what his background is. He seemed to know a lot about kind of uh, the science and astronomy and stuff like that. But he was just talking about kind of putting into perspective the universe, the galaxy, how large it is, and how small we are, and how God descended um, into our itsy bitsy planet to save itsy bitsy you and me. So it was a good message. It was fun. One of the things that was interesting to me was he 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 basically said like, "Hey, anyone, I have this quote from Steps of Christ. If you have your Steps of Christ book, pull it out." And everyone pulls this out, and I'm kind of curious. I'm like, "What is Steps of Christ?" Um, very much like heavily kind of talking very highly about it, right? He's like, yeah, I love Steps of Christ. Everyone, you need to be reading Steps of Christ. I read it at least like a few times a year. Um, a lady pitches in and she's like, yeah, I keep like a couple copies of Steps of Christ in my purse at all times, and I hand them out every day. And so I'm kind of like, what is this? And I Googled it, and it was written by Ellen G. White. So back to what I was talking about earlier about their website, where they state that they only accept the Bible as the only source of their beliefs. Um, it was interesting. I'm not really sure how Seventh Day Adventist kind of view Ellen G. White as a Latter Day Saint. Um, like we believe in modern day prophets, and so we believe that they could receive new revelation. I'm not sure if they kind of view her as that, or maybe they view her more as something like um, maybe like apostolic traditions do, where they believe that the Holy Spirit can kind of guide a group to make correct interpretations of Scripture. Um, that was interesting. They very much had a heavy focus on the Bible, though. A majority of the lesson, it felt very Protestant, um, constantly just kind of quoting out verses. He would quote a chapter in a verse and read a single verse all the time. It was super interesting. Um, they also talked a lot about justification, sanctification, salvation, very much with an emphasis on salvation is not our work, it is God's work. Our work is ultimately to surrender to Jesus. So that was it was a fun lesson. It was really interesting just to kind of like lean over and whisper to my friends and kind of I think they were vibing with a lot of the Sabbath school lesson for the most part. But it was pretty interesting just leaning over and talking about that. So um, overall, I really enjoyed the Sabbath lesson. The worship meeting after that was also held in the sanctuary. Um, the sanctuary it was a really cool place. I should have gone over it in a little more detail earlier, but they had that really beautiful stained glass piece. They had something that looked like a baptismal font of some sort, kind of tucked away on the back of the stage. They also had this altar in the middle of the room with a Bible placed on it that says, "Do this in remembrance of me." They didn't have communion today. My friend searched it up. I don't know if it's accurate or not. I'll try and put something on the screen saying if it is or not. Um, he said that they only do communion or the Lord's Supper once a quarter or so. So a little bit bummed out. I missed out on that. I do know that Seventh Day Adventists have a foot washing ceremony that they like to do before the Lord's Supper. So kind of a little bummed out. I missed out on that. I'll have to hit up a service some other time for that. But overall, really good. The worship service itself, it was I liked it a lot more than the Sabbath school, but it was really interesting. They had a lot of piano music, um, lots and lots of prayer, lots and lots of music. So they open with a prayer. They have kind of some greetings of Happy Sabbath, of course, some announcements, back to singing hymns. One thing that was really interesting was the fact that they sang, I think it was 3 or 4 hymns in a row from the hymn book that they had. So yet again, as Latter is saying, that was kind of just interesting. I mean, we'll sing 3 or 4 hymns throughout a meeting, but we're not going to sing 4 hymns in a row. But like they had basically an opening prayer. They have a prayer right before they pass around a plate for offerings. Um, at one point, we knelt to pray. Um, Sometimes we would stand to sing. Sometimes we would sit to sing. But all of that was really fun. One thing that was kind of a little that I was not expecting, and neither of my friends were, was what they called children's story. So they call up for children's story, and all of these children go up to the front and they stand on the stage. And I don't really know what's going to go on. Like children's story, is this a story being given by the children? Are they going to reenact some biblical scene? Is this a story for the children? I was kind of leaning maybe it's going to be that. Is like the pastor someone? Is he going to share some sort of message catered toward children? And then all of a sudden, on both of the screens, it changes to this view of like a cockpit, and you start hearing turbulence noises coming out of the speakers in the background. And you see these church staff members walking down the aisle, dressed up as like pilots and as like crew members. And they kind of gave like a little message. It was kind of like a little skit. They were talking. I'll try and throw a clip on here. I don't remember exactly all the things that they were talking about.
For takeoff and for landing. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth, as it says in Ephesians 6:14.
But we're talking about the Bible being like an oxygen mask, kind of using a lot of airplane terminology, but likening it to the Bible. Um, I was not expecting it. It was kind of fun though. Definitely the most memorable part of the service. At the end, there was also they basically just said like, "Hey, would any of you children like to give us a prayer?" And there's this cute little kid that was probably like 4 or 5, and they gave like a really good prayer. It was fun. After that, they had children's offerings. So all the little kids walked around with these baskets and collected offerings. I'm assuming that the distinction between the normal offerings and the children's offerings is that children's offerings, that money specifically goes into the children's program, I'm assuming, but not 100% sure. Um, More music. There was a pastor that was visiting. He actually used to be a member of the congregation. He used to be an elder, actually. And he ended up just barely finishing school and all that. And so he was visiting and giving a sermon. And he actually sang, and his wife played the piano. He sang. That was excellent. But it was interesting to be able to kind of see that dynamic of him telling his story about being a lay member of the church, of being an elder, about going to this school. It was called the SALT program, I believe. Um, and so, yeah, it was a great message. He talked a lot about how kind of he left his faith and how God never stopped reaching out to him, even though he stopped reaching out to God. He talked about how he kind of came back to the faith. He got rebaptized, which was interesting. I didn't know that Seventh Day Adventist um, practiced rebaptism, but I guess that they do practice it in certain circumstances, even if it's not like required or anything. Um, but yeah, just constant prayer. Prayed before his message. Prayed. He kind of gave an intro about himself. Prayed before he gave his sermon. Um, he also shared a great story. I can't remember the name of the movie. I've never seen it before, but it kind of talks about um, it's depicting these things where there was this um, Desmond Doss. This man felt compelled to go and serve in the military during World War II. But as Seventh Day Adventist, they don't believe in. I'm not exactly sure. I believe it's taking human life, or maybe combat or war, or something like that. But he ended up serving the military as a medic, and so he was able to share that story of this guy just saving life after life after life, saving, I think it was 70 something soldiers in kind of this incident, just constantly praying, God, let me just save one more, let me save one more. So that was a great message. And then he also read a little bit from Esther, and he kind of shared like an interesting thing. Um, so he talks about how in Esther, um, Mordecai tells her, "Don't tell the king about your nationality," and he kind of likened it to them, a Seventh Day Adventist, and said, "So when you're knocking on doors, when you're introducing yourself, don't introduce yourself as, 'Hey, I'm a Seventh Day Adventist Christian. Sabbath is Saturday, and Sunday is the mark of the beast,'" which I did not know that they believed that Sunday is the mark of the beast. I actually also learned that afterwards that there are some distinctions on that. I think they usually just view it as improper practice. Um, but he was talking about that, how you don't need to shove down the full kind of Seventh day Adventist package down someone's throats, but just start out with getting to know the person, their family. Just start with Jesus. And then after that, after people can kind of adapt to that, then they're going to be able to be ready for, I guess, the full Seventh day Adventist message, which I would agree with. I mean, not the Seventh Day Adventist part, but like I would agree with that, right? Like I think it's really easy to get caught up on a lot of these um, certain aspects of what we view as doctrine, um, and kind of focus on that as our message. But like, really, I think as Christians, the big thing to focus on is just like on Jesus, on Him, and after that, then we can start worrying about other things. So that was really good. Overall, I really enjoyed the service. It was a lot of fun. Um, I I was not expecting Seventh Day Adventists to be so Protestant, so good on them. I have heard someone characterize them as um, borderline heretical Christians. They do affirm the Trinity, but they do have something going on there with Ellen G. White. They're very insistent on Sabbath day observance. But overall, really good people. Seemed like pretty straightforward, normal Protestants for the most part. I enjoyed the service. enjoyed uh, being able to visit their house of worship. So hopefully throughout the rest of the year, I'll be able to continue to upload some more videos. This one was a little bit rushed. We only thought of this idea of visiting, like I said, like 2 days ago. So hopefully the rest of the videos will be a little bit more polished. But thanks for watching. Bye.